Alrighty then, everybody. I am back. This episode is unfortunately a little under a week late because last weekend I got sick. Yeah, my brother's kids came over and well, they uh, they were carrying basically a cold virus. So yeah, and I unfortunately caught that and was out of commission for a little over half a week. Still suffering a little bit from that. I was very badly congested and coughing, and for several days, my voice was genuinely just gone. Um, but yeah, where I could barely talk. But yeah, and even now, I have something that just is still making me cough a little bit. Not a lot, but yeah. So until that, I can feel it in my throat too, the left side of my throat. But yeah, so hopefully I can get through this with as minimal coughing as possible, but we shall see. So, episodes 22 and 23 of Kamen Rider Zeztz. So yeah, this is a very interesting two-parter, and I'm wanting to see where it goes next. I did watch episode 22, I think a day or two after it came out, just because in one of the Discord servers I'm in, uh, some of the people were talking about it and like were just saying it was nuts, and I do agree. And then episode 23, I watched when it came out, obviously. So yeah, so about a week before this was recorded, a little under a week, but yeah. Um, so where to start with this? Episode 22 picks up where the last one left off with everyone like waking up. Fujimi and Nazca specifically, we see wake up, and it doesn't seem like there's a big effect on the world as of yet. It's clearly been several hours since the nightmare escaped into the real world, and yeah, they get back to Baku's place and start. And them and Minami talk with Baku about what's going on, and Baku says that he failed in his mission from the last two-parter, and Nightmare got out and everything. But they haven't seen. I believe Fujimi brings up that they haven't seen anything in terms of results, maybe the from the Nightmare. So yeah. But then we see 5 and 6, aka Kureha, come in and try to get Baku to go with them. He initially does resign himself to going, but he doesn't really know what he really wants because of his doubts with code and everything. Um, but yeah, but then we see Nazca have an emotional reaction to Kureha, obviously, and seeing her again, but Kureha starts going fully by number 6, and basically has resolved herself to being part of Code once again, as we saw in previous episodes, and yeah, so then when they're outside of Baku and Minami's apartment building, um, they try to get him to come along, and 5, because he senses that Baku doesn't really know or doesn't really want to serve code. I think he says because Baku's not ready to serve code, he shouldn't have his Zeztz driver, so he tries to take it from him. But obviously 6 stops him first, then Baku gets him off of him. And 5 says, when you're ready to join us, or when you're ready for the mission, come join us. And they take off in a car. So yeah. So we see Baku off on his own trying to think about what he wants. And he is holding his, the red capsum. I can't remember what it's called. But the breaker capsum, is that it? But yeah, the regular one that he uses to transform into Zeztz. And we then see he enters a dream world because he just falls asleep, which makes sense because he didn't get a full night's sleep, as far as I can tell, the night before because the dream was interrupted because, well, the nightmare broke out. So it makes sense that he's physically tired and everything. And I think that also, like, contributes a bit to what happens for the rest of this episode and into the next because he didn't get a full night's sleep, so he's probably just not entirely thinking straight on certain things. But yeah, he talks with Nem for a bit in the dream world. She knows his real name now because of how the dream cast her in a role for knowing it. And basically, the entire world is just basically, it looks like a nuclear apocalypse kind of happened. And all the buildings are lying in ruins. There's a thing of Baku as a baby lying in, I think, either a stroller or a bassinet, something like that. And yeah, they basically just discuss, I believe, a dream or something to that effect that he was having or he had as a kid, because I believe Kreha mentioned it before she and Five left, and yeah, so after their conversation, he wakes up suddenly, realizing that he fell asleep, and he begins walking. I'm assuming he's going home, but yeah. So then we see Five and Kareha go to the building rooftop where Nox and the Nightmare are. And they start fighting. Early on, the Nightmare basically blasts away Five's transformation belt, the Invoker, I guess. I can't remember what it's called, and I'm not going to look on the wiki. Actually, let me look on the wiki, because it's the same as Kareha's, and I have her page open, so why the fuck not? Yeah, it is the Lord Invoker. Yeah, so, yeah, because it's basically, I guess, a similar device to what Nox had before he got his Nox driver. So yeah, so they end up fighting. Kareha obviously transforms into her Kamen Rider form and fights the Nightmare. Well, Five fights Nox, and unfortunately, both the Nightmare and Nox are too much for them in the real world, especially when they're diverting their attention between the two of them. And the Nightmare ends up stabbing with, I believe, some sort of energy weapon that he pulls out of him. He stabs Kareha in the stomach, to which she detransforms and is slowly dying until Nox gets a real gun and shoots her dead. Five naturally has a big emotional reaction to this. I believe the Nightmare takes off, but Nox is left to deal with Five, and Five tries to put up a big fight against Nox, and yeah. Meanwhile, we see Three. He sees the life signs of Baku, Five, and Kareha. He sees Kareha is dead. She doesn't have a life sign anymore on his device. He calls Baku, who met up with Nazca and Fujimi. And after he's told what happened to Kareha, he tells Nazca and Fujimi. Nazca wants to go and try to help, but Fujimi correctly points out, what are you going to do? Or what could you possibly do? And yeah, and it is just one of those things. And Nazca breaks down, has a full-on fucking, like, crash out over Kareha. Understandably, they were, like, childhood best friends all the way up until high school, or all the way through high school. And they only, like, just recently, like, met. Not really reconnected, but just re-met after several years out of high school. So yeah, so obviously there's still something like lingering friendship stuff there that obviously she would have a big emotional connection towards. So yeah, Baku starts crashing out as well. He basically just has a fucking panic attack where, like, even though Fujimi tries to break through to him on like what he could have done or what he's supposed to do or whatever, or what his mission is in terms of taking care of the nightmares, um, Baku just doesn't know what to think for a bit. But he resigns himself. He says, "I am seven" to himself several times. He shouts it to himself, and he just resigns himself to doing what he can and going to help five. Unfortunately, though, when he gets there to the top of the building, Nox has seemingly also killed five, unfortunately. And before Baku can really do anything, Nox uses his it's his breaker, right? His break buster, and shoots Baku off the roof over the ledge, and Baku goes flying to the ground, or not flying. He just drops or starts dropping to the ground. However, he is cast into the dream world once again, and Nem's there as well. She gets held by the nightmare that's there. However, Baku soon realizes that the nightmare, or that they're in his subconscious, and the nightmare is what gives him the power to turn into Zeztz. So yeah, so he takes the red capsule, uses its power, and forces the nightmare to give him its power, and he gets a new power-up item in the form of, sorry that I have to keep doing this, the Catastrom, which is an add-on to his Zeztz driver that gives him a new form that is much beefier and stronger, at the cost of, I believe, like physical like exhaustion after using it. So when he gets out of the dream, the energy like envelops him, and he saves himself by landing on the ground with a pretty big crash. Nox sees him and transforms into his Kamen Rider Nox form. Then Baku transforms into the Catastrom form, and says to Nox that he'll break him, which reminded me of the line from, I think it's Rocky 4, the Russian guy saying, "I must break you," when he and Rocky are about to face off. Haven't seen that movie, have seen that clip, just reminded me of that. I don't necessarily know if that's what he says directly translates to, but I'm assuming, because the translations for these things are usually good by Shout Factory, so yeah. So yeah. So I believe the next episode starts. Yeah, I am remembering right. So that's basically where that episode ends, but the next episode picks up right after, or right as that last one ended. And Baku, even though like he's not quite used to the form yet, and obviously the extra like muscles and whatever with the form causes him to not be as like readily fast as Nox initially. He soon gets, or he very quickly gets like used to the power and everything, because it also just protects him from what Nox throws at him, and he uses his fist and the power to break Nox's buster. Then he beats the shit out of Nox until, well, he kills Nox with the power. So yeah, Nox is dead. But Baku is also basically like physically wiped. Like I said, the Catastrom form takes a lot physically out of him. So he transforms back to normal, and then he just falls to the ground, knocked out. So, yeah. Um, so they take him home while their agency takes Nox's body, Otaka's body, and keeps him under, or they took him with absolute secrecy, basically, is what Fujimi says. So, yeah. So while that's happening, Baku is back in the dream world, and he soon realizes what exactly the dream world, or he realizes that with the why do I keep forgetting its name? It's only because it's new. The Catastrom thing. He can use it to break him and Nem out of the dream world. And yeah. Meanwhile, while they're both in the dream world, time is really weird in this episode. I just need to say this is the one part of the episode that I think kind of loses me a little bit. The timing of everything is just weird. Baku gets wiped and like sleeps the rest of that day. Then through the night, enough for 3 to come through the HQ that is directly connected to Baku's closet, goes out into his room, tries to wake him up because he, well, obviously needs Baku to do his job, to the point where he not only tries to shake him awake, but also punches him right in the nuts. I'm very much certain that is what happens. They kind of like do a discretionary shot away from it. But considering where his fist is when the camera cuts back to where he just punched, I'm pretty sure that was his way of trying to wake Baku up. But yeah, he realizes that Baku's obviously trapped in the dream world while the nightmare's out there wreaking havoc. And yeah, then we see Fujimi and Nasuka coming through Baku's window and everything, and they get acquainted with 3. They go into the HQ with 3, and basically, they just find out what code is. And yeah, so he explains what code is. It stands for Confidential Organized Defensive Establishment. And basically, it's a collective of, I guess, like, not government agencies, but like kind of shadow organizations that all came together to try to bring about world peace. They are protecting the Earth from stuff like, I'm trying to remember. I know aliens, the paranormal, and a bunch of other stuff that that is supposed to, and they're protecting the Earth from all of that stuff. Basically, any like real threat to the Earth, and their agents operate in secrecy. He also just basically acts like 5 and 6, 5 and Kureha. Their lives meant really nothing to him, and you can tell by his demeanor that he really just doesn't give a he either just doesn't give a shit, or he's not allowing himself to like feel any kind of feelings towards them. And yeah, he even says that he has more important things to do than to mourn the dead. And just goddamn, dude. This is basically what Nox was getting at to Baku in a previous episode, where like, yeah, Code doesn't seem to really give a shit about anything regarding their agents. And he even says like, after Nazca says that like, you just use your agents as soldiers or something like that. And he says, world peace is worth the sacrifice of many. And that, man, Mr. Spock would have a talk with number 3 if he could, you know. because Spock always says it's the needs of the many are greater than the needs of the few or the one. So yeah, so he just does not give a single flying shit about anyone who works for Code. Um, which fucking hell. Like, there are pros and cons to that sort of mentality. And I think it's on the more toxic side of that kind of thing. But at the same time, you can at least understand why he feels that way. He's probably been in the game for years. And on top of that, like, in his line of work, because he's also a secret agent, but he's also a a higher ranking agent. He has no doubt seen some shit, and it's kind of like soldiers and all that. Like it's easier to in the moment shut your emotions off than to deal with that shit. Especially when shit's going down, you know. But it's still like, what the fuck, dude. So yeah, and I can think of a bunch of organizations and governments right now that unfortunately are treating regular people very similarly. And that's all I have to say about that for now. But yeah. And yeah, so he leaves, I assume, to probably trying to see who they can get to help deal with the problem of the nightmare. And things keep going on. Minami goes to see, because she finds the business card of the lady who Baku saw in one of the previous few episodes, to try and get a read on what's going on with him, because of the fact that, like, she brings up to Fujimi and Nazca that Baku's been sleeping longer and longer recently. Obviously, I believe she's referencing the episode where, I think it's where she finds out about the secret agent stuff, and Baku, unfortunately, because he got trapped in the wormhole, slept longer than usual and could not be woken up no matter how hard she tried. So yeah, and the lady tells her that, like, he seems to be having trouble, something with his subconscious and whatever else. To which I have to say that this woman is like a real scheming bitch, but at the same time, she's not wrong. I'm just going to say she's not wrong in her assessment of what's going on. She's also just using her knowledge of more shit, because Minami doesn't know who the fuck she is. Baku doesn't even know who the fuck she is. So yeah, no one on their side knows who the fuck she is. Or even that she's really in charge of the opposite operation. You know, so yeah, so why the fuck would they at this point? I imagine Code knows who she is. I believe Zero did, so yeah, it's just that no one knows that she is, like, I think, active in this shit. But yeah, either that or she doesn't know, or they don't know that or they just don't know that she is just, you know, involved or something, or maybe even what she looks like. I don't know. We will probably get answers in a future episode. But yeah, so after that, she does use her powers to basically hypnotize Minami into not telling Baku that she went to go see her. For what purpose, I'm not sure. Maybe she may be expecting Baku in the future. I don't know. Or she doesn't want Baku to think that something's going on. But yeah. So then we get back to the dream world with Baku and Nem, and he uses the I keep fucking forgetting it. I do apologize, guys. The catastrom. He uses the catastrom to bring down the like half blood moon thing that's always in the sky when he dreams, and uses it to break them out of the world. and he promises Nem that he will find her in the real world. That is his mission and everything, or one of his missions. And he also says to Nem before he does that he is willing to give up the life of Yorozoru Baku. And she's like, is that really what you want? And I don't think he necessarily answers. It's more so just a thing he's resigned himself to become more powerful and better as an agent. Because I think what's going on in Baku's mind is that, especially after he got the news about, what is her name? Kureha dying, that, like, he feels that if he were there, he could have done something to help, and hopefully they would be still alive and everything. There's no way really that he could know that, and I don't really necessarily think he should be blaming himself, at least as much as he is, for their deaths. But at the same time, the other side of the coin is that if he were there, he probably could have helped, because it would have been 3-on-2 instead of 2-on-2. So it's kind of give and take right there. So yeah. Oh yeah, there's also something that Otaka says before he dies. Basically, when tapping into that power of, like, the subconscious, like Baku did, it causes the user to slowly break away from humanity and everything. And that was basically like a warning, I believe, to Baku. And yeah. But yeah, and Baku also says in the dream to Nem that because Nox's dead body is lying on the ground in the dream, I'm assuming because Baku's projecting it there, because that was obviously the last thing he saw in real life, that was something he should have done a while ago. And Nem is like, really? And he says, yes. But then she's like, why are you crying then? And he has a tear going down his cheek. And you can tell that Baku's really trying to hold it together. Because, like, the dude had a full-on fucking crash out in the last episode. And he has been just through the emotional ringer these last 2 episodes. So I think he's just trying not to lose it. And he's trying to think of what the best scenario and best solution to his problems are. So, yeah. But when he crashes the moon down, he resolves himself to becoming Agent 7 IRL and devoting his energy towards that. And just giving up his life, or leaving his life as Baku behind. So, yeah. So he wakes up. Nem also wakes up. She doesn't know where the hell she is, obviously. And she's like, am I dreaming? Because she wakes up in a bed in the lady's house, or lair, or whatever, or headquarters. And yeah, so then we see Baku wake up. He sits up, and we see his slow transformation into actual Agent 7, and or code number 7. He even has like one like back bit of his hair like sticking up in the dream. And Minami's glad that he's awake finally, and he says that he's better now. And so he goes into his HQ and starts dressing in his agent clothes. So yeah, and puts on the ring. And basically when they try to address him as Baku, he's like, that's not who I am anymore. Basically says, that's not who I am anymore. They're like, who are you then? And he's just like, code number 7. and he's all dressed up and everything. It's a little weird that like in real life he the like when he puts on the like dress shirt that he wears, it still has like the overly big like muscles that he has in the dream. Granted, no idea why he has that in the first place, but his actor is a twig, so it just I don't know, it's just a little funny. I thought it was weird. I thought it was funny in the dream, but it's the dream world, so it at the same time is fine. But like when it's in real life, I don't know. I think if it were like fitted more to his actual body, it would be a bit better. But yeah. So then yeah, and it's really weird in regards to his agent stuff as well, because when he goes to fight the nightmare, he takes the motorcycle that was Zero's body, or Zero's robot body, and he oh yeah, I forgot to say the lady also destroys Zero's like memory thing, that memory core, I guess, that they had, and I guess that was the last of it, or last of him. They just She just dunks it in some water, and it just shits the bed. So yeah, um, forgot to mention that. So, but I am mentioning it here now, so I know, or so it's established. But yeah, so he does the rotary phone dial thing to go and track down the nightmare. He gets to the nightmare, and he says, avoid the nightmare scenario, which is the last order he was given by 3. And he says, that is my mission. And he uses why am I forgetting it? The Catastrom to transform into Zeztz Catastrom form, I guess. And he pretty much quickly overpowers the nightmare, and he brings out a new weapon. Cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. Here we go. The Triple Zetzer is what it's called. Basically, this big cannon thing, and that looks like just basically an assault rifle. And he loads up 3 capsums in it, like charges it up, and blows the nightmare away. But he also got a little carried away, and the energy from the blast also goes beyond where the nightmare was and destroys several buildings in its wake. Yeah, I did not think of this before when I watched the episode the first time, but on a rewatch, especially when you watch the next episode preview, 3 says to Baku apparently that like he has outlived his usefulness, I believe, and goes to fight him in his Kamen Rider form. Which I don't know if that's going to be the next episode or maybe the second half of the next 2-parter, but we shall see. But I think that that's probably why, because like 3 literally said earlier on in the episode that like they operate in secret. They operate in the shadows, basically. And you can't have that big bombastic shit going on in real life that was going on in the dream world. And yeah, and Baku takes out the Catastrom from his Zeztz driver and transforms back to normal. And he sees the destruction he caused during the fight, or at the end of the fight. And you can tell on his face that, yeah, he did not intend to do that. And I'm assuming he's now thinking how much more careful he needs to be if he's going to use that form. I think also he might be a little bit worn out again. But yeah, basically he had a single-minded like thing that he was going to do, and he lost track of like how to do things more succinctly and cleanly, especially since they're not acting in a dream. So yeah, I assume the next episode's gonna begin with like some sort of like maybe 3's gonna talk to Baku about that and everything. But yeah, or maybe Baku's gonna be like, um, just in a quiet resolve about it. Maybe, I don't know. Just something's gonna happen. Uh, where I don't know. Baku's gonna just basically, maybe that's why, and I'm thinking that's why. Like three's gonna tell Baku he's outlived his usefulness. So yeah. So then we see we see Nem back at the lady's house, and she she comes out as the lady is talking to a newly planted flower. She basically is using it. She says, "This bloomed when he woke up." Some shit about Nox, and then she says, "Goodbye, Nox." And then Nem comes out, and the lady turns towards her, and Nem's just like, "Mom." So yeah, so not necessarily sure how Nem recognizes her mother. Maybe, I don't know. So what I'm saying is that in the dream world, when she was still talking to Baku before he freed them from it, um, she talked about how she grew up in the orphanage, which we found out in an earlier episode. Um, and she was always wondering like, what can she do and whatever. And Baku helped change her as a person, which is really nice and sweet. But so we don't really necessarily know what age she was when she went to that orphanage. I guess old enough to know what her parents looked like. So, yeah. So yeah, plot twist: the lady is Nem's mom. We don't know her name yet, but that'll probably get revealed in a future episode. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens next with that plot line. I'm just very invested in what's going on. Um, and I just honestly, this is like almost the midpoint or around the midpoint of the series. We don't necessarily know how many episodes there are gonna be, but I'm assuming around 50, maybe between 45 and 50. Um, but yeah, and I really enjoyed this two-parter. There is one thing that I will say in terms of like the score. Actually, I really think is really good. There's a really nice like orchestral piece that plays when Baku and Nem are in the dream world, and Baku brings down the blood moon and everything to get them out of it and everything. But then which is different from the usual action music we hear. But then when Baku wakes up and goes to get dressed as Agent 7, he they play the main theme of the show. They play the theme song, and like I understand what they were doing there. I don't necessarily know if that was the right call for the music that plays in that moment. Like that is supposed to be more of a moment where we see Baku like resigning himself to becoming stronger and like doing away with his humanity and everything. Um I don't believe that that's supposed to be a moment where the theme song plays. It's actually funny cuz like usually in like the show itself, um unless if I am just not remembering properly, I don't believe we've gotten a single moment in the show itself where the theme song plays. And that's like the first moment in the show where the theme song plays during an episode as the background music. And yeah, usually I'm more used to Toku like Power Rangers and Super Sentai, where they play the theme songs of the shows over like the final battles of the episodes. Um, like every episode that they usually do that. Just as sort of a like fuck yeah kind of thing where the usual score isn't as like energetic or whatever, but also to like punctuate the moment. Um, so yeah, usually for the fights, I believe they they don't play the theme song in this show. So yeah, it's just it was just a little weird. I would not if I were like the composer or director, whoever chose the music for this episode, um, in terms of the placements or whatever, I would not have put the theme song there. I would have put maybe a different piece of music that maybe is more like maybe more like close to like other like spy thriller type music stings, you know? Or maybe a different version of the theme song where like maybe it's just an orchestral instrumental of it or instrumental version of it. I don't know. Something like that I think would have been more fitting. But yeah, also something I wanted to say is that when Baku resigns himself to becoming Agent 7 full time and do away with his humanity, it kind of reminded me of Ben 10 Ultimate Alien. The last few episodes of the Ultimate Kevin story arc, basically the last episodes of season 1 in production order. Um, and how Ben, like, he resigned himself to tracking down and killing Kevin specifically because he's been losing nonstop for the last however many weeks that they had been dealing with Agrigor, and then for them to defeat Agrigor only for Kevin to get crazy again, and then there being seemingly no other like solution to the problem. Ben just resigns himself to that, and he kind of just tries to strip away his emotions and his personal feelings towards like Kevin being his friend and Gwen's boyfriend and everything, to just take care of the problem once and for all. And I think it feels like Baku has been pushed towards a similar thing for the last however many episodes where he's been contemplating what's going on with Code and everything. Um, just something that I thought I'd bring up. It's interesting when shows like this make their characters go on an arc like this, a character arc, and we all know that eventually Baku is going to be like talked down and he's going to regain his humanity and all that stuff. But the journey is going to be very interesting to see where they go with this. I'm imagining Baku is going to maybe he's going to have a bit of a talk from Minami about stuff and everything, and then also stuff that has to do with Code is probably going to bring him back a bit. But then when he eventually finds Nem and everything, I feel like her tied with everything else is going to like wrap it up in a bit of a bow and like bring him back to like reset him to center and like just be a thing where trying to think where he regains his humanity and is free of like the curse of what the Catastrom form brings and everything. And yeah, and then just some shit's gonna happen like that. He's maybe gonna go a little bit too far. Like I would say, you could say that him killing Nox was definitely like over the top, but it's not like I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like that's overstepping too much because, well, Nox is an asshole. He kind of has a point about, or he definitely has a point about how Code does things, and everything. But I'm just saying but like the whole thing about it is like he's going the wrong way about it to try and resolve the problems that Code has, and everything. Especially when like he doesn't actually talk to Baku about anything. He doesn't do anything about that. Although, granted, Baku did see, I believe the flashback in Nox. I think it was Nox's dream about it, about his like final days with Code. Um, but I also feel like an actual exploration of what led up to those events would be good. For Nox's character development and Baku's as well. Because it seems like there's more to that story than we've been shown thus far. We'll see if they actually explore it. I would like them to explore it. But yeah, we'll see. Um, so yeah, but we're gonna see. I feel like we're gonna see Baku go over or overstep, or just cross the line, and to the point where like he probably has an existential crisis and crashes out again. But in like a different way, obviously. Um, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how they're gonna play this new angle for Baku as a character. But yeah, so yeah, longer than average, or probably longest episode of this podcast since I did the episode on the first 5 episodes. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. I just had so much to talk about because there's so much that happens in these 2 episodes that mean a lot towards the like characters and everything. This is definitely the end of the first like quote unquote story arc of the show. And especially as they get into the second half of the show, it's gonna just be very interesting to see what they do. Um, Obviously, we're supposed to not be on the side of Baku, and we're supposed to see how he's wrong to abandon his humanity and how fucked shit's gonna get. And how fucked shit kind of already is. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here. So yeah, so not much else to say, guys. So links in the description, all my shit. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one.